Shalom, good morning. I'm retired Coast Guard Vice Admiral Brian Peterman, and I'm here to talk about airspace security in general and the security of Ben Gurion Airport in particular. Now, you may ask why a Coast Guard Vice Admiral might be talking about airspace security. My experience is this. Just after the air attacks on the United States on September 11th, 2001, I was brought into the White House to work on the new Homeland Security Council. And there I was given the role as Special Assistant to the President for Borders and Transportation Security. And because these attacks had happened from the air, airspace security was on the front line of considerations of what we needed to protect against. So among many of my other responsibilities, we searched for ways to make our airspace more secure, and we focused on the airport areas where aircraft are most vulnerable as they're taking off and landing. And because the threat of shoulder-fired missiles to those aircraft was so great, we really focused on that threat around our airports. The shoulder-fired missile is a great threat because it can bring down a commercial aircraft. And there are varying degrees of sophistication of these shoulder-fired missiles. These shoulder-fired missiles are technically called man-portable air defense systems, or MANPADS, and I will refer to them as MANPADS through the rest of this discussion. MANPADS, the least sophisticated, have a range of about 3 to 4 kilometers and can shoot at an altitude of about 2,000 to 3,000 feet. And they have to be fired from behind the aircraft that they're trying to hit. The more sophisticated MANPADS have much greater range and could hit an aircraft that's flying at around 10,000 feet. And they can be fired from any geometry around the aircraft, either from the front, the side, or the back. So that makes them a much greater threat. And the guidance system for these more sophisticated MANPADS are very sophisticated, and right now the countermeasures that we have cannot defeat all of the guidance systems that the more sophisticated MANPADS can have. The MANPADS are, there's about 500,000 of them that are proliferated around the world today, we believe, and many of these MANPADS are on the arms black market and in the hands of potential criminals or terrorists, which makes them the great threat. Now, when I was in the White House, the National Security Council asked me to take our team of experts that were assessing U.S. airports and send them over to assess Ben Gurion Airport. And we did do that. And I can't talk about the specifics that they found because that information is still classified, but I can talk to you about the MANPADS threat to Ben Gurion Airport in general. The situation is that Ben Gurion Airport is within 6 miles or about 10 kilometers of the West Bank. And that puts the Ben Gurion Airport into very easy range for typical mortar or indirect fires from the hills overlooking Ben Gurion Airport. And an attack that way could certainly disrupt ground operations within the Ben Gurion Airport perimeter, which is critical. But even more critical, I think, is the threat to the aircraft as they take off and land at Ben Gurion. And because the direction of aircraft landing and taking off is really dictated by the wind direction and the orientation of the runways, at Ben Gurion Airport, you're going to, at times, have aircraft taking off and on into the airport very close to the West Bank. Now, that would put them into range of even the less sophisticated MANPADS. So the MANPADS threat to Ben Gurion is very critical. And I would add also that from the West Bank, you can see Ben Gurion Airport, and it would be very easy to collect intelligence on the flights, the scheduled flights that are going in and out of Ben Gurion. And what does that mean? Well, the threat to aircraft going in and out of Ben Gurion is not only near the West Bank, but it is also from the approaches that come from the Mediterranean. And any intelligence that's gathered over those flights, and knowing the wind direction, there could be a terrorist attack that could easily happen from a boat that's in the Mediterranean. I know from being in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv and seeing the aircraft coming in and out, they fly very low over Tel Aviv and fly very low over the Mediterranean for a large period of time. A boat that's outside of the territorial seas of Israel could, with a man-pad shooter, could easily take down an aircraft that is approaching even from the seaside. And intelligence gathered from the West Bank could be used by those people that are out at sea waiting to take a man-pad shot. So I think the threat to Ben Gurion is very real from the West Bank and from the ocean approaches to Ben Gurion. And of course you have to consider the unilateral protection of Ben Gurion Airport and the aircraft that are flying in and out of there. Consider putting countermeasures on aircraft, consider putting countermeasures at the airport, perhaps on UAVs flying around the airport that could detect a launch and quickly defeat that launch through certain technical measures. So that's what I would suggest. I wish you the very best of luck as you consider the many challenges that you have in protecting Ben Gurion Airport. I know from working in trying to protect U.S. airports in and around our border areas and around sea approaches, it's a very, very complex, a very difficult thing to do, even when you have friendly neighbors around you. So I wish you the very best of luck as you consider this very critical consideration.